We have the secondary citizen to Simone Biles, that is Jordan Childs. Time Magazine's telling us that this isn't really the women of the year. These are the secondary citizens of the women of the year. At least when it comes to A'ja Wilson and Jordan Childs.
You're not going to believe this one, nope, not even in your wildest dreams. Just when we thought Caitlyn Clark had conquered it all, here comes Time Magazine with the most ridiculous move ever. And guess who's right in the middle of it? A'ja Wilson. At this point, they're just making stuff up for fun. I had to double check if this was a prank, but nope, it's real. And trust me, you're going to want to hear every single detail. Buckle up, let's get into it.
A'ja, there's days where I'm struggling. It's moments where no matter how hard you work, it still feels like you're not getting the recognition. It still feels like somebody's got to say something to say. I needed them to understand that they help me in more ways than they'll ever know. It's hard showing up every day and wearing this crown. It's heavy. It gets extremely heavy. But at the same time, I'm going to fix it, make sure it's straight, and I'm going to go ahead and do my work.
So Times Magazine really thought they could just skip over Caitlyn Clark for Women of the Year. And nobody would notice. Like, seriously, we weren't supposed to see that. We weren't supposed to have questions Caitlyn Clark, arguably the most famous women's basketball player in the world. Right now, she's got record-breaking stats, the highest viewership numbers, and is literally dragging women's basketball into the mainstream all by herself, yet somehow she's not even a nominee. But guess who is? A'ja Wilson.
Dear friend, Caitlyn Clark did not make the cut. Folks, don't overreact. Don't get angry. Don't get frustrated. Don't be surprised. I don't think anybody should be surprised by this. And this isn't A'ja Wilson's fault. This is just Time Magazine doing what Time Magazine does.
Now, let's break this down more, because none of it makes sense. Caitlyn Clark has single-handedly made women's basketball the talk of sports media. She's got NBA stars watching celebrities tweeting, and TV networks begging for more of her games. When's the last time a college player had this kind of impact?
A'ja Wilson has been nitpicking with Caitlyn Clark, almost like anything you can do, I can do better situation. And this is another case of that type of scenario, because Time Magazine, let's pull it up right now. Now, I was stunned when I seen this, guy. I was definitely stunned when I seen this. As you guys can see here, Time Magazine has named A'ja Wilson, and which Jordan Childs definitely deserved this, Jordan Childs Women of the Year.
And then there's A'ja Wilson, the same A'ja Wilson, who, yes, is a great WNBA player. But let's not act like she's revolutionizing the sport. And yet she's not just nominated, she's literally the face of the magazine, and center big old cover star, meanwhile, Caitlyn Clark. Not even mentioned, not even a footnote. It's not even like Caitlyn Clark had a good year. She had a historic year, breaking records left and right, selling out. Arenas bringing in ratings that WNBA players can only dream.
Oh, man. A'ja. So you got your Time Woman of the Year cover. You're one of the 10 women, I guess, in sports that they're saying are Women of the Year. So you get your cover. Today is your day. What a day to celebrate.
And don't get us started on A'ja Wilson acting like she's a face of women's basketball. The only time people talk about the Aces is when they're bullying other WNBA teams. Yet somehow A'ja gets all the flowers, and then Caitlyn, who actually moves the needle, gets absolutely nothing. Oh, and let's talk about viewership. Caitlyn Clark's games are pulling in NBA-level ratings, while A'ja Wilson's games are getting outviewed by reruns of The Price is Right. But she's Woman of the Year, okay, times you see. What we're not going to do is sit here and pretend like this isn't the biggest snub of the year. This is worse than Leo DiCaprio waiting years for an Oscar. This is worse than when J. Cole lost Best Rap Album to Macklemore. This is disrespect at the highest level. Let's be real, Times Magazine fumbled. They thought nobody would notice. They thought Caitlyn's fans wouldn't say anything. But nah, they see it clear as daylight. Caitlyn Clark deserved that nomination more than anyone. And the fact that she wasn't even considered, that tells us everything we need to know about Times Magazine.
What are we talking about, man? All you got to do is be a teammate of Caitlyn Clark or have a robbery with Caitlyn Clark or have an incident dust up with Caitlyn Clark or say something slick about Caitlyn Clark on Twitter.
Caitlyn Clark took the WNBA by storm. She changed the game, brought millions of new fans, and had the world talking about women's basketball like never before. Sold out arenas, record-breaking viewership, and straight-up dominance on the court. She was out here breaking records left and right, putting up numbers that had never been seen before, yet somehow, someway Times decided that A'ja Wilson is the woman of the year. A'ja Wilson, really? The same A'ja Wilson who's been playing in the WNBA for years, but nobody outside of hardcore fans really cared. The same A'ja Wilson who wasn't packing out arenas, wasn't making casual fans tune in, and wasn't making people say, yo, I gotta watch the WNBA tonight. That A'ja Wilson, Caitlyn Clark, came into this league and instantly put on the map. She made people care. Before, people acted like the WNBA was just background noise at the barbershop. Now it's must-watch TV. And for that, she gets disrespected. She gets trashed on by players, analysts, and now Times Magazine. She gets overlooked for a player who's been there for years and hasn't moved the needle like Caitlyn.
Calculated that Caitlyn Clark was responsible for $36 million in economic impact to the city of Indianapolis, and that she is responsible for 27% of the entire WNBA's economic activity for this past season, including attendance, merchandise sales, and television. One player in a big league responsible for 27% of the economic impact and economic activity for the WNBA. One person more than a quarter of it. She's responsible.
Let's talk about adversity. Caitlyn Clark has had to deal with more hate than any rookie in the history of the WNBA. She stepped into the league, and immediately people were out to get her. Players took cheap shots at her on the court. She was getting clowned by WNBA vets who were mad that she became the face of the league overnight. She had media members throwing shade, questioning if she was even that good. Meanwhile, A'ja Wilson, she gets praise left and right like she's carrying the WNBA on her back, when in reality, Caitlyn Clark is the one doing all the heavy lifting. And let's not forget, Caitlyn Clark was still cooking through all of it, broke records, made history, proved every hater wrong. And still Times Magazine decided to overlook all of that and hand the award to someone who didn't even have half the impact Caitlyn had. What did A'ja Wilson do that was so groundbreaking? Win a championship. That's cute. Caitlyn Clark literally won the championship of making the WNBA relevant. That's way bigger than a trophy. A'ja Wilson winning Woman of the Year is like giving an MVP to a role player while the superstar carries the team.
Caitlyn Clark has officially surpassed a 25-year record. She became the fastest player in WNBA history to record 200 or more points, 75 or more rebounds, and 75 or more assists. Doing so in just 15 games, beating Shannon Johnson's record of 16. This is just another way to prove that she is without a doubt a generational talent.
But in let's reward the safe choice, let's ignore the fact that Caitlyn Clark was out here dealing with a league full of players who had a personal vendetta against her just for existing. Let's like she wasn't getting fouled so hard that NBA players were calling out. Let's pretend like she wasn't under more scrutiny than any other WNBA player. Ever Times Magazine fumbled this one. They had a chance to acknowledge the biggest game changer in women's basketball history. And instead, they went with the politically safe, let's not upset the WNBA Veterans Choice Classic. And A'ja Wilson, she had no problem accepting the award, knowing full that Caitlyn Clark is the reason more people even know who she is now.
You're talking about GOATs of the W. I need my name to be up there, at least top 3. Like, that's my goal, is like, I want something like, when you're thinking of women's basketball, when you're thinking of the W, I want my name to be on it.
Come on, tell them, A'ja, tell them.
Takes, like, whatever it needs to get there, whether it's the rings, whether it's the accolades individually, like, I want to be up there in that category.
So this is the same A'ja Wilson, right? The one who just a few months ago was throwing her own teammates under the bus, talking about how their locker room wasn't a championship locker room. The same A'ja Wilson, who instead of taking responsibility as the so-called leader of her team, decided to publicly air out her frustrations like she was on a reality TV show. And now she's the face of Time Magazine. What, let's not forget, this is a player who for one season didn't get exactly what she wanted. And suddenly it's everybody else's fault, her teammates, not championship material, the locker room, not up to her standards. Oh, but when they were winning, when everything was all good, She was all smiles, taking the credit, acting like the queen of the WNBA. But the moment adversity hits, suddenly she's got complaints. Interesting.
Wasn't a championship locker room, Wilson said. I mean, out of the gate, going into training camp, I was like, we ain't got it. Wow. Okay. That's crazy. I always told myself, we're going to get it. We're going to check each box, but we didn't. Oh, man.
Now let's do some math real quick. A'ja Wilson is out here on Time magazine getting celebrated like she's the greatest thing to ever happen to basketball. Meanwhile, Caitlyn Clark, the actual biggest star in women's basketball, is out here getting disrespected left and right. A'ja Wilson gets a magazine cover, but Caitlyn Clark, now they act like she doesn't even exist, make it make sense. And don't even get started on this whole narrative there. Pushing A'ja Wilson is breaking barriers. She's leading the way, where to what a second round exit, because that's what happened last year when she was blaming her own teammates for not meeting expectations. Meanwhile, Caitlyn Clark is literally breaking records every other game, setting attendance records, getting more viewership than most NBA games. And yet she's the one they keep trying to downplay.
Today, where A'ja Wilson, she kind of admitted that the Aces were not like championship ready this last season. She said specifically it wasn't a championship locker room. I mean, out the gate, going into training camp, I was like, we ain't got it. I always told myself every game, we're going to get there. We're going to check each box, but we didn't. And then she also went on.
And I actually just want to leave this here real quick. I mean, this shows no loyalty to your teammates. And this just shows, so you felt like this wasn't the team to get to a championship.
It's honestly hilarious A'ja is out here getting magazine covers, and yet when the league needed a superstar actually bringing fans, she wasn't the one who delivered. That was Caitlyn Clark, the same Caitlyn Clark who's been dealing with constant disrespect from the media, other players, and even the WNBA itself. But A'ja, she's got Time magazine singing her praises. And let's not forget A'ja Wilson was the same one crying about not getting enough VP recognition, talking about how she doesn't get the same respect as other stars, but respect is earned. Not giving Caitlyn Clark, never had to beg for attention. Her game made people pay attention. Meanwhile, A'ja has been in the league for years and is still out here complaining about respect. Maybe if she spent less time whining and more time elevating her game, she wouldn't have to beg for credit.
This is quite remarkable. I've never seen a professional league just actively attempt to tear apart their ultimate star. Washington Mystics owner Sheila Johnson wants to know why they couldn't have put the whole WNBA on the Time cover and called it the League of the Year. And of course, she said that because her argument is Caitlyn Clark is not the only one that moved the needle for the WNBA.
The narrative never changes every single year. They try to tear down the best. And this time it's Caitlyn Clark again. But here's the problem. This ain't last year. This ain't Iowa. This ain't college ball, where teams could just rough her up and hope the refs let it slide. Nah, this is different. Caitlyn Clark has an army. Now she's got veterans like Dananna Boner, who's seen it all and isn't here for the nonsense Sydney Carlson, who will clown these haters in real time and then drag them on social media after the game. And let's not forget Sophie Cunningham, who is basically the WNBA's enforcer. You touch Caitlyn Sophie's, making sure you regret it.
First of all, do the Fever even have any more roster spots open? How many folks are you guys going to sign? What is painfully clear, and what I've talked about in my other videos, is that the league, the Fever organization are doing everything they should do to make sure their star is happy and that their star gets a ring. I didn't know they were going to load up like this, though. Dewanna Bonner, Sydney Colson, just re-signed Kelsey Mitchell. You already have Aaliyah Boston. You have Caitlyn. You have Lexi.
It's like having a personal security team on the court. And then there's head coach Stephanie White, a coach who knows what it takes to win with the Fever, a coach who's not about to let Caitlyn Clark be disrespected like she's some random rookie. So when she's out here lighting up the league, putting up ridiculous numbers, and leading Indiana to wins, how exactly are they going to keep disrespect to her? What's the excuse going to be this time? It's just the regular season she's playing. With a good team, the league is carrying her. Nah, the only thing being carried is the big L these haters are going to take when Caitlyn Clark is holding up a trophy at the end of the season.
Clark will be legitimate WNBA MVP contender in 2025. The Indiana Fever star is building a historic rookie season to challenge A'ja Wilson for the 2025 MVP honors. Now, I told y'all, bro, Caitlyn Clark is standing on business next to A'ja, bro. She wants that MVP trophy. She needs that trophy. She winning all the awards right now, but she needs that one on the list expeditious.
And speaking of haters, let's talk about times as she drops 35. They say it wasn't efficient enough as she gets a double-double. They say she stat padding. It's a never-ending cycle, and we're tired of it. And then there's A'ja Wilson. Oh, you thought we'd forget? Nah, she's part of the problem, too, acting like Caitlyn. Isn't that good? Like she hasn't been doing this for years, A'ja. And her crew love to move the goalposts when it comes to Caitlyn when she wasn't in the league. They said she wouldn't be. Good enough now that she's dominating. They're still trying to find ways to discredit her. It's getting ridiculous, but none of it matters because at the end of the day, all Caitlyn Clark is going to do is win. And what are they going to say then? How do you keep disrespecting someone when they're holding up the MVP trophy and leading their team to the finals? Simple answer. You can if you enjoyed, like, and subscribe. More videos are on screen now.
This is quite remarkable. I've never seen a professional league just actively attempt to tear apart their ultimate star. Washington Mystics owner Sheila Johnson wants to know why they couldn't have put the whole WNBA on the Time cover and called it the League of the Year. And of course, she said that because her argument is Caitlyn Clark is not the only one that moved the needle for the WNBA.